Your bike over the winter months doesn't require any changes, but a few key adjustments will help make the ride more comfortable, safer and kinder for both you and your bike. So here are GCN's tips for winterproofing your bike. The first thing we're going to look at are the tyres. Now, old, worn out tyres are far more likely to puncture, especially in the winter when there's more grit on the road, thorns, and you're likely to encounter some wet surfaces. There's nothing worse than fixing a puncture on the side of the road when it's freezing cold and pouring with rain. So if your budget allows, invest in some new ones. Wider, grippier, more heavy duty will reduce the chances of puncturing. If you want to go that extra mile, you can also buy tyre liners, rubber things that go all the way around the inside of your tyre, again reducing the chances of thorns penetrating your inner tube. And an old pro teammate of mine, he used to run really wide tyres and put some thinner tubulars inside. Next up, we're going to look at the brake pads. Now again, in those gritty conditions, the rubber brake pads will wear down that much more quickly, so it's a good idea to check regularly to make sure that you've got enough rubber left to get you through your ride. If you get down to the metal, you're going to have a reduced braking performance and it's going to be quite a treacherous ride back to your house. Now that same grit which rests on the surface of your brake pads will also begin to wear down the braking surface of your rim. So in the long run, it's going to be more economical for you to buy a cheap pair of training wheels to use over the winter. Now this next thing might not be too popular with all of you because they're not the most fashionable of items, mudguards or fenders as you call them over in the US, but it's something that I always used to use in the winter months because not only does it keep the spray and mud away from your face, your hands, your feet and your backside, it also keeps it away from your frame, your headset and your drivetrain, which will keep all of that lasting longer. If you've got a dedicated winter frame with mudguard eyelets, then you can get some proper mudguards on there, but more and more people are starting to use their race bike all the way through the winter. So a few companies are making mudguards which will fit onto them. SKS make the race blade. On here we've got some crud guards, and as you can see we've got it on a fairly aerodynamic frame, the specialised venge, without too many problems and no tyre rub. Next up, we've got light. Now this is something that GCN would recommend to all of you who ride in the winter months, even if it's in the middle of the day, because it can quickly get dark and gloomy. And there's no excuse these days because they're getting so cheap. We bought these ones from a supermarket for just a few pounds and they're perfectly bright and adequate enough to keep us safe and keep motorists seeing us. Our next tip is for the chain. Now, like your brake pads, a chain which is exposed to grit will make it wear that much more quickly, and a worn chain will in turn make a worn cassette and worn chain rings. Now, it's going to be very expensive to replace the whole lot, so why not buy a lower spec chain which will allow you to afford to replace it more often, again, saving you money in the long term. Our final GCN tip for winterproofing your bike is to make sure that all the moving parts are either greased or lubricated. This means your headset bearings, your bottom bracket, your hubs, your pedals, and of course lubricating your chain. Not only will this help keep your moving parts working properly, it will also prevent moisture from penetrating in and so in the long term save you money.